Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy, science fiction, books. Today we have a discussion on July on the channel. So in July I read 7 books and started an 8th. Also I did finish on the very first day of July a short story collection that I started the previous month, but I'm not counting that because I read almost all of it in June, and I think I read a couple, like one short story on July the 1st. So you could go and say I read almost 9 books, but I finished 7. So what books did I read? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the videos that I made, the most successful ones and the least successful ones. And we're going to talk a little bit about stats for the channel. Normally this is where I would also point you guys to my TBR, but as you guys know, I am doing no TBRs for June, July, August of 2021. Or maybe did I do one in June? I'm not sure what I'm doing. I know I'm not doing a TBR for August. In September, I will be doing Self-Pub September again, the same as last year. I've got a few books lined up, not least Return to Edan by Philip Chase, and I wouldn't mind reading a couple of other self-pub fantasy stuff that I have hanging around. Hopefully the next Hybrid Helix book will be out. I'd like to read Brian Wilson's self-pub sci-fi. So yeah, lots of interesting things coming up. I will still be reading Wheel of Time in September, so I've probably already got too many self-pub books that I am curious about reading, so who knows yet what will actually get read next month. However, we're not talking about next month, we are talking about last month. I started the month by reading Surviving Westcliff by Thomas Perkins. This was a 4 out of 5. This is a fantasy from the SPFBO selection, so I am working with Philip Chase, author of Return to Edan, who is one of the judges for SPFBO. He tried to do this last year and read all the books that he was assigned, and there's like, you end up reading like 60 books, and he essentially just did not have time for that and overcommitted and was like, next year I'm going to get some help. So this year there were a big group of us. I think there's 5 of us left after one person unfortunately had to drop out. And we are going to be reading 6 books to give and tell kind of Philip who the best ones are. So currently, Surviving Westcliff is my favourite of all the books that I've read. So I had 6 books assigned. I have tried 4 books that I did not get on with. I have then read Surviving Westcliff that I really liked, and I tried out a final 6th book that I also liked, which was called Soul Stealer, and that one I will be reading this month. So I'm currently reading the first binding, and I'm hoping to have that finished quite soon. So I've been going very slowly with the first couple of 100 pages, but I feel like as I start to get more and more into the book, it will get faster. Probably very similar to how The Will of the Many ended up for me, where I was like not that sold by the beginning of the book, and I read it quite slowly, and then as we came into those I read like the last 200 pages of Will of the Many in a single day. So I'm hoping to see the same thing from first binding. If I'm not feeling absolutely in love, I do think I might DNF first binding once I get to the point that Mare told me. She was like, get to this point, and if you aren't loving it, maybe it's not for you. And I've had a few feelings a few times. I was like, maybe this isn't for me, but then I've read chapters that I've really loved, so I'm a bit confused on the first binding still. This isn't another video about the first binding. Next up, after Surviving Westcliff, I read Infinity Gate by M.R. Carey, and I have decided that Infinity Gate by M.R. Carey is my book of the month. I don't know whether it was my favourite book that I read this month. That might go to Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan, which was the next book that I read. However, I cannot give book of the month to Wheel of Time every single month, and while it seems a bit counterintuitive, because Lord of Chaos is, I think, my favourite Wheel of Time book so far, and we'll talk about. You've seen reviews which tell you why that is. I really want to draw attention to Infinity Gate. I absolutely loved it. I think I loved it almost as much as Lord of Chaos. It was very close, and I just had a great time reading it. So Infinity Gate is a really, really cool multiverse sci-fi book written by M.R. Carey, also known as Mike Carey, the comic book writer. He is also the author of The Girl with All the Gifts, which got turned into a movie. It's a zombie novel. Essentially, the plot of... I didn't give you the plot of Surviving Westcliff, but there's a billion videos about it on the channel. Infinity Gate, the plot of Infinity Gate is basically this woman who is a physics professor on a dying Earth, discovers the multiverse and realizes that she has to escape her universe in order to survive, and that she can't really take anyone with her. Most of everyone she knows is dead, so she just decides to kind of jump through. And when she jumps through, she's picked up by a kind of multiversal empire that has seen her Earth as to be beneath the empire, not worth visiting and not worth joining up. And she then becomes embroiled in this political structure and this empire, and we have a couple of other characters from different Earths that we start following. Essentially, absolutely fantastic book. Love the characters so much. Really want to read the second one, but I am forcing myself to wait to read it from the library because I have bought way too many books lately. I actually cancelled my pre-order yesterday for the new James S.A. Corey book, Mercy of the Gods, and I was like, I could have started reading that instead of Leviathan Wakes, but honestly, do I want to start a series that I could be waiting 2 or 3 years for the next book, or do I want to read The Expanse, and then when I'm done with The Expanse, the Mercy of the Gods series will be there, and maybe the whole trilogy will be out? So I think I know what I should be doing, which is reading The Expanse. Next up, Lord of Chaos. Now, technically, I finished The Wandering Inn first. So The Wandering Inn, I have been reading one chapter a week since November last year. So this is an incredibly long book. It's also, I think, like the shortest volume in the series, and it's one of the longest books I've read. I really enjoyed this. It had a few flaws. The biggest one is that it doesn't really feel like a book. It feels like a serial, and that's because it is a serial. So the end of the book is kind of like, it kind of felt like Pirate Arbor. The author was just kind of came out of nowhere and was like, the book should probably end here. I'll put a climactic event in, and it didn't make a whole lot. It wasn't like built up. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. It just the ending felt a bit weird and rushed, and the whole book is kind of leading towards the two protagonists meeting, and it kind of doesn't happen. Mild spoiler, but I don't think it would have ruined my enjoyment if I'd known that. I've done an entire non-spoiler review / recommendation for The Wandering Inn Volume 1. I did end up rating the book a 5 out of 5. I don't know whether if I thought about it, I might pull that down to a 4 out of 5. There was a lot to love about this book. However, like I said, the ending I had a bit of a problem with, and there was one chapter that just felt completely out of character for the character it was the POV for, and I really hated it, and it took me hours to read because I was just struggling through it. The author is obviously a very good author and a very good writer, but I feel like they tried to swing in that chapter and they really missed. I often would support an author to go for a big swing and try something and try and make a big turn. Robert Jordan actually does this tons in Wheel of Time. He will really surprise you. However, Pirate Arbor, I think, did not nail that chapter. In many ways, I often feel like you need to think about whether books achieve what they're trying to do, rather than try and find some sort of objective metric of quality. And that particular chapter, I don't believe succeeded in what it was trying to do. However, the book as a whole was a success for me. So I think between a 4 and a 5, it's still a 5 on Goodreads. I might go back and reduce that at a later date, simply because if I rate that as a 5 out of 5, where do we go upwards for the other books as well? And it wasn't a perfect book. There were certainly moments of 5-star feeling, but there were moments of pure 2-star feeling, that one particular chapter. So really difficult to quantify and qualify, simply because it did take me like 7 months to read it, and I read it a chapter a week. And while I do think that that's probably the best way to read it, I also would say that if you binge read it, maybe you'd enjoy it more. But this was the most true to the original experience of the fans who read it the first time, which is what I wanted. Lord of Chaos is up next. Matt and I have done our full non-spoiler discussion, which came up on the channel yesterday. I have also recorded my full review, which is non-spoiler. That's also on the channel. I won't go too far and too deep into Lord of Chaos, apart from to say that this is my current favourite Wheel of Time book. I have loved the last 4 books. All of the last 4 books have been 5 out of 5s. There was one side story in book 5 that I was like, feel like I could do without this particular side story. But all in all, the books have been fantastic. I really like Lord of Chaos because it feels like the first one to really acknowledge that this is a massive, sprawling world and series. A lot of storylines don't get wrapped up in this book. Previous books, I felt, sometimes have tied off the stories a bit neatly, whereas this one, a load of stories that kind of get closer to an ending or to a midpoint were started in previous books. There's new storylines that are started in this book that don't end. I mean, for example, one set of characters goes to another country at the end of the book to find something, and they don't find it. They are just there when the book ends, and they don't take place in the final battle for the book, which I really liked. One of the big issues, I think, with some of the early Wheel of Time books is they feel a bit like a diamond, where all your characters start in the same place. They all go off and do stuff, but then they always end up back in the same place at the top of the diamond, whereas this book was definitely a triangle. Everything expanded, the world expanded, the possibilities expanded. I became more interested in characters that I've not really liked, not liked, but have been less interested in for the last few books. We got characters that have taken some time away from the series that came back. Brilliant. Absolutely loved this book. Watch mine and Matt's spoiler discussion for our full thoughts. You can tell how good it was because in spoiler discussion I don't make any jokes about Swan Sancho's fishing metaphors. Next up, I read Artemis by Andy Weir. I've just posted the review for this on Monday, so I'm currently a few books ahead in terms of reviews. And Artemis is now my favourite Andy Weir book, I think. And I think it's my favourite because it has more characters and it has a bit more character to it. Basically, it's like a crime... I don't want to say thriller. It's like a crime story, but it's set on the moon, and it's set in this science fiction, like this, alternate near future where a small town of people has grown up on the moon. I really enjoyed this book. I thought that the audiobook was fantastic. It's read by Rosario Dawson, and she's great as the main character. And yeah, I just had a great time with Artemis. I liked the world. I liked conceptually everything that we had thought up about the moon and about how it all worked. There's just lots to love in that book, and I loved all of it. I'm very surprised, having now read The Martian, which we'll talk about later, and now I read Project Hail Mary a couple of years ago. But I'm very surprised that Artemis is kind of seen as the black sheep, as the weakest book in Weir's oeuvre, because for me, it was much. I don't want to say I massively preferred it to the other two, but I definitely preferred it to The Martian, and I enjoyed it at least as much as Project Hail Mary. But I do think the inclusion of more characters and more character interactions and less flashback ended up that Artemis is probably my favourite. Next up, I read The Silver Blood Promise. Now, normally when I talk about The Silver Blood Promise, I show you my lovely, beautiful broken binding edition. Currently, it is on my bookshelf behind a ton of stuff as we're moving a few things around in the office. I have cleared off just enough space to record this video. However, I can't get any of my books out, so I'm not holding any books up. I actually have broken binding editions for 3 of these books. So The Silver Blood Promise is by James Logan. It is a fantasy heist, kind of scoundrels in a fantasy city sort of book. It's been compared favourably to The Lies of Locke Lamora and Gentleman Bastards books. And while I have not read those, I'm fairly aware of what they're about. I had a great time with Silver Blood Promise. It's a lot of fun and it really shows promise for James Logan. I think he's a great author, and for this being his first book, is very impressive. I ended up rating this one a 4-star. So yeah, I rated Artemis 4-star as well, and that kind of breaks the 5-star streak, because Infinity Gate, The Wandering Inn and Lord of Chaos I gave 5 stars each, and Surviving Westcliff really broke my reading slump, I think, because in the previous month I'd been struggling with reading in terms of trying to find time, and then I was reading all those books and I read basically a 4 out of 5, 3 5 out of 5s, then 2 4 out of 5s. So really strong month, and had a great time reading last month. And Silver Blood Promise is definitely a big reason for my enjoyment. So yeah, had a good time reading it. And yeah, I think that this is one that I would recommend to most people. It's something that's definitely to keep your eye out for, like Kindle deals and stuff. It's just a really fun crime story, kind of crime heist thriller sort of thing. There's a lot of fun in it, and the main character is great. I really also loved one of the supporting cast members. I won't spoil for you because there's kind of their identity is kind of a part of the mystery of the book. But overall, a great time was had by all, and by all I mean me. Great time was had by me, and I'm genuinely really looking forward to the sequel, because I feel like there's so much promise in that first book. James Logan has a real chance to become a proper favourite of mine. The final book that I finished in July is The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, I would like to preface this with the fact that I love the movie The Martian. I saw it in 2015 when it came out, had a fantastic time watching it. I think it's really good, and after reading the book, I do think that it is the best way to represent this story. And the reason I think it's the best way to represent this story is because due to the serialized nature of The Martian. So originally, The Martian was serialized on Weir's blog. Each chapter is written kind of like a captain's log kind of thing from Mark on Mars. And honestly, I would have rather just have written about the events in media res. I would like to have seen the events happen. I'd like to have seen the reaction of Mark and other characters to what's going on. We basically only ever hear about things after they've happened. The tension is completely gone because we're hearing about everything after the fact. A lot of that also kind of is like, well, pretty obvious that he gets home if a lot of this stuff is going on. And it never felt like Mark was in real danger throughout the entire book, because nothing dangerous happens to him that he doesn't fix before you even hear about it in most cases. It was good, but I think that the way that it was written did not help that kind of story for me. I think the movie did a great job, because when something horrible goes wrong, you're like, oh crap, something horrible's gone wrong. But in the book, you're like, he goes, oh, this horrible thing went wrong, but I fixed it. And it's like, that takes a lot of the wind out of my sails, as it were, for that sort of thing. So that's it. So that The Martian was also ended up being my most disappointing book of the month. I know I don't like to do best and worst. It was the lowest rated at a 3 out of 5, but also I would class this as the most disappointing, simply because I've just wanted so much more from The Martian than I was getting, and I just didn't like it as much as the film, which is always kind of a sad place to be with books. Now, in terms of the channel growth for the month, so we had 77 new subscribers in July, which is a very slight reduction from June. All of the stats are a very slight reduction from June, but we're talking like 1 or 2%, not like half or whatever. So 715 hours of watch time on the channel, which is pretty cool, and 8.4k views. I would imagine that we won't hit that in August, although I do have a plan for a pretty exciting video that I'm hoping will come together. But sometimes I'm like, I've got a plan for a cool video, and then it comes out and it's a real wet fart and no one watches it. However, videos that did not do particularly well this month, unfortunately, my interview with Joe Byrne, author of The Hybrid Helix, only got 40 something views, I think like 43, but really that video was for me. So I often hear, you hear of movie stars who are like, I'm going to do one for you and one for me. So they'll do, the latest Marvel movie in order to get Disney to fund their indie passion project TV show about, civil war in Nicaragua or something. And most of my videos, what I want to do is entertain, inform, and give you guys a view into my personal reading taste, so that if you align with my reading taste, you can find yourself some books to read. That's how I've always used BookTube, is to find people that I align with and then kind of follow their stuff. I found a ton of great books through doing that with people like Matt from Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews, Patrick Leo, Murphy Napier, Bookborn, and all of these sorts of, and of course, some of my buddies as well. I won't go on. But so I don't tend to do the one for you, one for me. But every now and then I'm like, I really want to read and review this book, and I know that nobody cares, but I'm still going to do it. So I will, read and review things like Infinity Gate, which got terrible reviews, and I actually put out an appeal and shared the book review again on Twitter. And luckily the author saw the review and retweeted it, which got some views on the video. I'm really glad, because that book is genuinely excellent, and I do want more people to watch that review. And the more people that watch it, obviously the more people YouTube will push it out to in recommended feeds. So a lot of people liked that. A lot of people watched that review in the end, but unfortunately not very many people watched my interview with Joe. That really was one for me, because I loved the Hybrid Helix books, and I had so many questions I wanted to ask Joe, and I imagine that we will reconvene and do that interview again multiple times. But maybe what I'll do is put that out on a week when I know I have some certified banger videos, so I know that it doesn't affect the algorithm, which I do actually think it did for that week, because all the videos that week got less views. And it's not like it was like amazing weather or something. It was just a normal week. Anyway, so yeah, and the most viewed video is a Wandering In video for the first time in quite a while. So the Wandering In videos used to always be the most viewed videos every month, and then slowly all my other videos caught up and have now actually overtaken. So my Wandering In video views are actually quite low compared to some of the rest of my stuff. However, the volume 1 full non-spoiler recommendation / review was the most watched video this month. I actually had a few that came close, but this one had 430 something views. I had a few over 400 this month, but this one in particular was the most popular video. This is talking about most popular videos that I posted in July, because all of my e-reader videos have done way more views than anything else that I posted this month, even though they're months and months old. Like 2 of them are from last year and they still are doing 1,000 views a month in some cases. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that is the end of the video. So we're at 800 subscribers now, which is really cool. And if you subscribe, I'm genuinely incredibly thankful, and I'd love to have you here on the channel as a community member. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Also, while you're here, why don't you like this video, because that will tell YouTube that you enjoyed the video and you think that it should recommend it to other people. And if you drop a comment down below, I will reply. I reply to all comments. I'm currently a little busy, so I'm not able to reply to comments with the speed that I would like to, but I'm trying to make sure that at least once or twice a week I'm going in and replying to every single comment. The fact that I now cannot reply to every single comment within like an hour or 2 of it posting is pretty cool. It means the community is growing to the point where I kind of need to sit down and deal with them in batches, which is really cool, and I'm genuinely so happy to see it. We now only have 190 something subscribers to go before YouTube can start paying me money for the adverts that you guys are watching on my videos, and that is going to be a very cool milestone, and I'll definitely do something to celebrate that with you guys in the community. Any ideas for 1,000 and 1,000 subscriber celebration videos, let me know. This month is also my 1-year anniversary on BookTube, so August 18th I think is the 1-year anniversary of me posting my first video. So I will be doing a 12 months on BookTube video, and hopefully to celebrate those 12 months at some point I will be doing hopefully doing some collaboration videos this month. So I am going to look into putting those together. Unfortunately, time is kind of limited this month because I'm losing my summer intern. So I've got a few things to catch up on and to hand over from her. But yeah, anyway, don't know why I'm talking about that. Anyway, it's been a great July, and I'm really looking forward to August. I'm hoping to get more sucked into the first binding so I can finish that off. And one other thing I need to talk about, which is thanks for watching, and I will speak to you tomorrow.